Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming to Open Education Week. My name is Spencer, and I'm with the Colorado Department of Higher Education. We are celebrating Open Education Week, the first week of March here in Colorado, as the governor has proclaimed this week Open Education Week. Super exciting, very motivating for everybody doing fantastic work across the state. So thank you for joining us today. As a reminder, today is a presentation from our colleagues in the CU system. And we have presentations going on all week. So if you can, please join us for this presentation and others. I am going to kick it over to Jamie Henthorn at the CU system to introduce the CU team and let you all take it from here. So everybody, thank you again for coming to Open Education Week, and please enjoy the session. Jamie.
Great, thanks, Spencer. As Spencer said, my name is Jamie Henthorn. I am at the CU system, where I am the Director of Academic Innovation Programs. And on behalf of the Open CU Committee, it is my great pleasure to welcome you today. We are thrilled at the opportunity to share with you how we have been building and sustaining momentum through our Open CU initiative. And also, we feel grateful for this opportunity to stop and reflect on the outcomes, the OER outcomes that we have achieved through our 3 years of working together at the University of Colorado system. So some of you might be asking, what is the Open CU initiative? It's quite simple, really. It's our 4 campuses at the University of Colorado system. That includes Anschutz, Boulder, Colorado Springs, and Denver. And that's us working together through a committee to support educators, OER awareness, exploration, adoption, adaptation, and creation. And we've been doing this over the course of 3 years of the grant cycles offered by the CDHE. Sorry. And what we hope to do today, what we plan on sharing are the 3 points you see here. So we'll be looking at quantitative and qualitative outcomes, some of our insights into designing and implementing and expanding our initiatives, and importantly, how we sustain our practices and grow after we are through these cycles of grant funding through the CDHE. Now, these topics might look a little high level, maybe a little, shall I say, dry. So our creative approach to this was to look at each campus could take some time and reflect on what might be their top lesson or outcome. What has been a strength? What is really gaining traction on their campus? And we thought if we shared something tangible from us, perhaps that could relate to you all as something tangible for you, an actionable outcome, or something inspirational for you. So each campus will provide a little bit of a mini presentation within the shell of this larger presentation. And within that, you'll be hearing about the power of storytelling, about how we've been lowering the barriers to OER for educators, how we've been paving the OER path for educators, and also learning from one of the campuses about an early stage of OER on their campus journey. We'll finish up with an exhilarating lightning round of what we see on the horizon, little 30-second clips, and then open it up for Q&A. So without further ado, I'm going to pass this on to our first campus, Boulder.
Great, thank you, Jamie. At CU Boulder, our team includes myself, Carolyn Sinkinson, Leslie Reynolds, Marinda McClure, and Melissa Cantrell. We've worked as a team to broaden awareness, evaluation, adoption, adaptation, and creation of open educational resources and practices across the CU Boulder community, and I've been really thrilled to be part of the Open CU system community as well. And through our advocacy, we've seen some really encouraging gains for our campus that we believe will improve students' learning experiences. And we're always excited to talk about the specifics of our programs, the lessons we've learned, and invite any follow-up questions after today. But in particular for today, we wanted to focus on one specific theme that has really come to the forefront from us. It's emerged as a meaningful strategy and a powerful element of our open educational programs, and that is storytelling. So there are many compelling reports and findings that we share with educators when we're introducing open educational practices. And frequently what we'll do is provide some figures that capture students' experiences and capture the barriers that they encounter to accessing education. So we might share some things like what you're seeing on the slide here. The fact that undergraduates spend $1.5 billion of financial aid on textbooks each semester. That US student debt in Colorado has grown 176% since 2007. The average CU Boulder student graduates with $27,000 in debt. The fact that textbook costs have grown at 3 times the rate of inflation in the previous decades, and that 1 in 2 students suffer from food insecurity. And we tell educators these things, and we demonstrate that they can take action in the face of these troubling realities through open educational practices and resources. And for many educators, the facts are really unsettling and motivate an interest in open education. But we've also found another accelerant for enacting change, and that is storytelling. When educators have the opportunity to hear from fellow educators, that energy in the room just grows enormously, and the educators seem to gain confidence when they hear concrete possibilities of how open education can benefit learners and educators alike. By hearing successes and challenges, that ability to enact change really is encouraged. We found that stories capture the rich particularities, contingencies, insights that inspire receptivity for transformative pedagogies. And we found this method of relational learning really encourages OER understanding and optimism. And so that's the theme we wanted to highlight today, because we've really grown to appreciate the power of story. We're constantly seeking novel ways to incorporate that strategy, because it does impact the actualization and the enaction of change for open education. So we're going to share a few ways we've done that thus far today, and talk about our ongoing interest in capturing the voices of learners and educators.
All right, so thanks, Carolyn. We found that one of our most successful forms of storytelling about OER at CU Boulder has been through our annual Open Educator Award. Since 2018, we've had the opportunity to recognize and tell the stories of open education champions on our campus. Most of these awardees have been adopting, adapting, or creating OER without the added benefit of grant funding. So this award and the recognition it brings is really a key to our sustainability efforts to continue to build momentum around OER through the power of storytelling. So each year, an announcement about the awardee across campus communication channels is accompanied by a story about the educator, which is based on an interview that we conduct with them. The awardees generally tell us about their personal journeys to finding and implementing or creating OER, as well as their advice to other educators about who are thinking about adapting OER. So in 2018, our OE awardee was Diana Maggiore, who is a lecturer in the Department of Mathematics, who was awarded for her innovative use of the My Open Math platform. In 2019, our awardee was Leah Wasser, the Earth Analytics Education Initiative Director, who was awarded for her creation of the openly licensed Earth Analytics Python course. And in 2020, our OE awardee was Matthew Burrows, lecturer at the International English Center, who was awarded for his adaptation of an open textbook specifically designed for ESL learners. So just to give you a sense of sort of the range of the people we are profiling through this award. We'll also soon be announcing our award winners for 2021, and we saw such great nominations for this year's award that we're excited for the first year to be awarding more than one Open Educator champion. So one of the great benefits of elevating OER through storytelling is that it leads to connections and conversations with others across campus. When we were interested in sort of getting this award started, it led us to connect with the CU Boulder student government. And this really provided us an opportunity to interact with student leaders and learn more about their interest and investment in OER. And since we started communicating with them, CUSG has co-sponsored with the award with us every year and helps us to review and approve our selected awardee. Through this connection, we're able to gain new perspectives about OER and specifically what's important and what resonates with students, which helps us better understand what's happening on our campus and helps us to become better advocates as well. Our Open Educator Award is also a great outlet for students to be able to recognize the educators who have had a positive impact on them through the use of open educational resources and open pedagogy. Our goal is really to elevate voices and stories, to recognize significant efforts made across campus to reduce student cost and enhance student learning and engagement. And hearing what's important and impactful to students is valuable to us in our educational and promotional efforts. The Open Educator Award is also integrated with all of our workshops that we provide across campus, as well as promotional and educational efforts related to our grant funding. So it really provides us with a collection of stories and examples to pull from and use for inspiration and illustration.
So we found that when we elevate student and educator stories, the advocacy, the enthusiasm, awareness, and education that we are motivated to impart to our campus communities can sometimes be conveyed even more effectively than by our voices alone. We host several online library guides to support student and educator exploration of open educational resources, open pedagogy, and Creative Commons licenses. And from the OER LibGuide, currently, readers can explore the unedited reviews of open textbooks that CU Boulder authors have licensed and published to the Open Textbook Library. In these cases, open educators on our campus have rolled up their sleeves, really looked closely at an open textbook in an area of interest to them, and given their unedited opinions and constructive criticisms about these open textbooks. So in this way, they're sharing their expert appreciation for and their critiques of existing open textbooks. And they have a real opportunity in their own voices to influence the adoption and choices of other peer educators, both on campus and across the country and beyond, and to also potentially inform really useful text revisions and the strengthening of subsequent open textbook editions.
We're at about a minute and a half, just so you know.
Okay, I'll pass on to this slide then. Thank you. So in spring 2020, in spring 2020, in time for that instruction and supported by 2019 to 2020 Open CU grant funds, 9 CU Boulder educators adapted their courses to integrate OER. And here are just a very few comments from their stories. Looking ahead, in a moment, we also see that 7 educator teams will complete their adaptation or creation of new OER supported by 2020 to 2021 Open CU grant funds. And their final projects, which they'll be turning in shortly, will help us, we hope, amplify their successes and their challenges in their own voices for the benefits of their peers on campus and beyond. We hope to invite these educators, as well as future students who experience these adaptations, adoptions, and new created OER, to share their voices in educational opportunities and other communications that we share with our campus. In this way, celebrating this work, inspiring new educators and students to learn about OER, and sparking new connections, collaborations, dialogue, and strengthening our community across campus.
Great, and now we'll hear from the Anschutz Medical Campus.
Hi. So now I'd like to tell you about our efforts to promote the adoption of open educational resources at the Anschutz Medical Campus. And first, I should mention that our campus reality is a bit different from the other 3 campuses in that we are a health sciences campus. And that means that we're composed of several different schools with a majority of graduate programs and a smaller composition of undergraduate programs. That also means that many of our faculties have clinical research responsibility as their primary responsibility. And that is a reality that we have to keep in mind when we are trying to develop a program to promote OER in the campus, knowing that our students can still greatly benefit from this kind of efforts. So this is what the Anschutz OER landscape looked just 3 years ago. And that basically means there was none. And that is why we started by creating a committee that looked into what are the barriers that are preventing our educators from incorporating open educational resources, and what are the strategies that we can use to mitigate that and lower those barriers. So I hope that with this part of the presentation, you'll get some tips that might be useful for others in their own implementation of OER in their campuses. So the first barrier that we identified was a lack of awareness, because what is OER anyways? And I have to say that establishing a committee for OER with broad representation across campus was critical for the success of this mission, because that allowed us to draw from different kinds of expertise and have a better understanding of different types of realities from our different schools and different kinds of educators in our campus. So that was step one. And another thing that was very useful, sorry, can we go back one? Another thing that was very useful to promote the awareness were some workshops that we are currently offering on an ongoing basis through our library. So our health sciences library serves all of the schools on campus. And so that seemed to be the ideal place where to house this program. And we developed an introduction to OER workshop and a copyright workshop that any educator can access nowadays. And that helps us build a little bit of sustainability. And finally, this grant program from the CDHE for educators was very helpful in promoting awareness of OER. But of course, the second barrier is, okay, now I know what OER is, but I don't know how to implement it. Where do I find it? And so some of the things that have been very helpful for us to aid in this kind of situation is the availability of a librarian and a library grad student that are experts on OER resources and can help our educators, not only from our graduate program, but from any educator on campus, identify resources that can be used in their courses. So that is a very big step in lowering this type of barrier. And also the availability and interest of an instructional designer that can assist faculty in incorporating OER in their syllabus and their curriculum so that they can make the most effective use of these kind of tools. And one last thing that was important here was to develop a specific health sciences OER LibGuide that really helps people find the resources they need, because we found that finding specific health sciences OER turned out to be more challenging than we had anticipated. And so this resource is there for anyone that wants to use it. Another issue here is a lack of incentive, because after all, it is a lot of work to redesign a course that's already working and functioning properly around the incorporation of open educational resources. So we have to understand that it's important to give incentives for our faculty to undertake this kind of project. And so the same as you heard from Boulder, the grant program was very important, but it wasn't just a monetary incentive. It was also the recognition of their efforts that they put into developing that. And once educators adopt OER and see the positive effect that it has on their students, that generates enthusiasm and word of mouth spreads to other educators. But we're also trying to help in training and offering advice or ideas to people, to educators, on how to showcase their OER activities as a highlight of their promotion and tenure package. And finally, another barrier we identified is, as I mentioned before, the lack of open educational or the scarcity of open educational resources in the fields of the health sciences. And that challenge turned out to be an opportunity, a great opportunity to create OER resources. And that's something that we are very excited about. And we have been able to recruit several faculty through this grant program to undertake this kind of projects. And we're excited because this will not only serve our students, but has the potential to affect health education and health practices throughout the world. These are resources that will be available to anyone. And I think it's a very good community service. And finally, we're trying to stimulate faculty to adopt open pedagogy because we believe this is something that can also highly benefit our students. So this is what the Anschutz OER landscape looks like today. We have, through this program for the past 3 years, we have been able to serve over 2,000 students. And we have had several faculty members adopting OER. We have had almost 3,000 views in our OER LibGuide in our library. And we have had 133 faculty and staff learn about OER, and several of them have and are currently undergoing projects to adopt and create OER. So we have gone a really long way, and we are excited to keep this momentum growing in the future. And with that, I'm going to pass the word to our Colorado Springs colleagues.
Hi, so yes, we're going to be speaking for UCCS. I'm Susan Vanegriff. I'm the Scholarly Communications Librarian at the Kramer Family Library.
And I'm Andrew Dotson, and I am with the Faculty Resource Center. I'm an instructional designer who focuses on supporting faculty in their implementation of OER in their courses. So as a part of that strategy, I've developed what's called an OER success model, and that is based on the word success. And we start with the S, which is, we start with the 5 W's, which is what I call them, of OER, and that would include why OER are for you, ways OER are used and licensed, why OER are important to higher education, who benefits from OER, and where OER can be incorporated. So with that founding knowledge, then we move into the U, which is using OER repositories and the different library guides and the other resource guides that we have put together to enable faculty to find that OER that they are looking for and that will work for their course. So once they have located it and used those resources, then we move into C, which is choose relevant OER. And what I mean by relevant is OER that works for your particular course, what works for the teaching or instructional style, and also what works for the student needs. And so through that process of choosing, they also will discover then how does this OER need to be customized. And then we move into educating others about the OER, and that starts with the students. So we bring in a pre-course, a post-course survey to kind of assess that and take a look at what do students already know about OER, what is their experience. We teach them how to then use the OER that is in the course or how it's going to be used. And then at the end, which moves into the S, we survey the impact of that student use of OER. And then at the bottom, our last S deals with seeking assistance either from the FRC, from the librarian Susan, or our accessibility specialist here on campus. So then that has transformed. I'll turn it over to Susan to share a little bit about our program.
Absolutely. So now the FRC has developed a program based on that success model. It's comprised of 3 different levels that walk faculty and other educators through all of the different levels of using OER. So all the way from awareness to adaptation and remixing to creation. And this has really allowed us to offer a more individualized and customized OER journey. So we're really meeting faculty where they are and working with them to build up from that level.
And so this is a badging program, and we've decided that besides the grant participation, we also want to offer some kind of micro credential for this professional development effort. And so the first badge is what OER Success Part 1 is based on, and that's the reuser badge. And within that course, we first pinpoint through an OER course inventory the areas of the faculty course that is most conducive for OER. And this is a self-assessment. And then we move on to finding that OER that will fulfill those areas. So they go on an expedition to locate various types of OER using the various resources that we provide for them. They move on then into the course curriculum analysis, where they will look at their own current course curriculum and decide, where are the gaps there? If I'm not ready to just totally give up my textbook, I want to kind of take this implementation of OER at a slower pace, where can I start? And we figured the gaps would be the best place to start. So maybe I want to make my course more equitable. Maybe I want to make it, I want to have more perspectives in it. How can I start implementing OER to do those things and fulfill those goals? And then the next part would be the OER integration plan, where they identify the type and title of the OER that they have chosen, or the variety of it. They provide rationale for their choice. They explain how the OER is being used as a gap filler, and then they anticipate the potential student impact.
So the second part of this course, again, we're just stepping them up through those levels of OER use. We're moving from evaluating our course and looking at, how could we start using OER, to looking at that OER and thinking, how can we improve it? So this starts with OER content evaluation. This is everything from link verification and developing workarounds for broken links, analyzing current trends, making sure that the material is as relevant as it can be for our current students. Looking at tool use analysis. So is there any way we can make this material more engaging or more interactive? And finally, building on the FRC's existing access program, doing an accessibility check for universal design. The other component of this badge, sorry, back one. The other component of this badge is students. So we start building in that student participation part. So this includes the surveys that Angie already referenced, looking at awareness, use, and impact, but also getting students involved in terms of contributing and creating OER themselves as part of the pedagogy.
Right, and then the last part of the OER Success Program involves the redistributor badge, and that is where faculty will take their customized OER and decide how they want to redistribute it. So I encourage them to kind of come up with a vision for this. What is the interaction level that they want to include as a part of their OER publication? What is the medium choice? And then what is the process that they would be taking to make that happen? And so a part of that is a medium comparison. So picking and choosing between something like Merlot, Canvas Commons, OER Commons, and what we are currently utilizing, which is Pressbooks, for some e-texts that some of our faculty are developing as we speak. The next part is that final publication. So customizing that OER and putting it into a publicized form so that they can share it out with others. And then that last part, along that idea of sharing, the shared success. So they incorporate the feedback in, they look at the feedback, the impact that's gathered from students as the direct users of the OER, and then other users once that is out and in the public. And they will also take the results and the development process that they utilize to share that and hopefully build a community of practice for their colleagues, other people that are teaching courses similar to that, and that kind of thing. So we also wanted to track, what is the faculty awareness and use along the campus through this program? And so it began as an OER pathway course with 29 participants, and then we have refined the actual program itself into the different parts, and you can see how that participation is going along thus far. But we also want to offer continuous learning sessions. So if somebody doesn't have time to be in the program or doesn't want to quite commit all of that effort at this point, we offer other things. New faculty can hear about OER and what we're doing in the kickoff that we offer, the teaching and learning conference that we offer in January, and then throughout our different workshop sessions called the gift exchanges, where we talk a little bit about getting started with OER and how OER can support remote learning. Those were our current workshops that we've done.
And we're seeing all of this echoed in the statistics that we have from the library. We're getting an increasing number of questions about OER, and that those are also moving along in those phases. So in 2019, we got mostly questions about finding OER. In 2020, we saw a lot more questions about licensing, reusing, and publishing.
And then finally, just to kind of recap the student impact. So we are very interested in, like I said, through those pre and post course surveys, what is student awareness and how has that grown? How did they use OER and how are they using OER in their current course? What do they think about the quality of OER, their previous experience versus their current experience? And what are the reasons that they enjoyed OER the most? And so then the faculty can take that back and utilize that feedback to further fine tune their use of OER in their courses. And so I will now go ahead and pass it on to Dr. Veronica Rooks from Denver.
Hello, so I'm a faculty member at the University of Colorado, Denver, and I am on my sort of middle stage journey with OER, but the campus overall is really at the early stages of OER. So I'm going to give my perspective as a faculty member and some of the things that I've participated in for the campus and give some inspiration, I think, for our future as well. So Think Studio was one of my first exposures to OER on our campus, and it represents a group of faculty on our campus who are really passionate about digital pedagogy. As a Think Studio faculty fellow, I gave a workshop for novices like myself at the time, a few years ago, discussing how to locate OER through our vast library resources. And I learned to locate OER specifically for gerontology, which is an interdisciplinary topic, and it was particularly challenging where I had to look to different disciplines to find chapters from textbooks and things to add for my interest in teaching a course. I attended the CU Online Spring Symposium in 2019 and learned about the OER community of practice that Ellen Metter and Margaret Wood were offering in the summer. That was in 2019. They provided professional development funds as incentives for faculty time invested. And this was a bonus as I also applied for funding for my college to have an undergraduate research assistant help me to locate OER materials for my health and aging course. And time is important for faculty members as well as funding, so that helped a lot. This community of practice offers a collaborative environment with other faculty interested in using OER in their courses, and it offered our students savings of between $60 to $160 in textbook costs. Auraria Library continues to offer supportive consultations for faculty who want to use OER in their courses. And many of our faculty are motivated to use OER to increase access and affordability for our students. So inclusion is very important in faculty perceptions about using OER. And that's clear from the quote as well, based upon the social injustice and the pandemic from 2020 and ongoing as well. And while our campus is in the early stages of advocating for and using OER, there is forward momentum with it on our campus. So the Auraria Library has hired a new online learning lead librarian focused on OER, and that person came at the end of last year. And then the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences class is identifying courses in our registrar system and using OER or not, whether it's identifying that for students to be able to discern about costs for the course. And then the Auraria Library will offer more OER workshops as well this spring semester and next year with professional development funds from the CDHE grant. for faculty time invested to build OER buy-in on our campus. And then we are also hiring as a campus level professional, an associate vice chancellor for digital strategies and learning to advocate for our digital pedagogy efforts and organize a campus level OER committee, which the University of Colorado Denver does not have yet. And so hopefully with this new position, which I'm on the hiring committee for, hopefully with this new position, we can make some great advances. Thank you. Next one.
Wonderful. Thank you all. And just to keep things moving along, as promised, here comes our invigorating lightning round, and each campus will have about 30 seconds, a minute. You guys could take a minute to let us know what excites you the most on the OER horizon. And we'll go in the same order. So Boulder.
Thanks, Jamie. At CU Boulder, we're really proud of the growing community and our collaboration with our CU system partners. And as we look to the future, we want to continue to find new ways to make our community robust and share member stories, such as by supporting and formalizing educators as OER ambassadors in their disciplinary communities and strengthening our campus-wide communities of practice. I will pass on to the next one.
Thanks, Leslie. Natalia, you're muted.
Sorry. So at Anschutz, we're excited about growing the enthusiasm for OER in our campus and continuing to build this community of educators that are interested in OER and are willing to take risks and to learn from each other. We also want to help them promote the implementation of open pedagogy strategies in their courses, because we think they are beneficial for our students, and also build sustainability around our OER program so that we can keep this movement growing.
Thank you. And UCCS.
So what's next for you for OER success at UCCS? First and foremost, we've got continued library support for OER discovery, but we also want to expand that to include impact tracking and assessment of how our OERs are doing in the world.
Right, and of course, increased participation in the actual OER success program.
Part of that is continuing to build non-monetary based incentives for program participation through that micro-credentialing, the badges you've been seeing.
Yeah, and we definitely want to continue building a community of practice. So with the OER success participants, so that they can start to network and support and advocate for OER in conjunction with the Faculty Resource Center.
And finally, as part of that, we also want to expand the student role in OER. So everything from advocacy to use to having students start to develop and contribute to OER as part of teaching and learning at UCCS.
Great, thanks. And Denver.
So the future of OER at Denver is really representing growing savings for our students and increasing possibilities with our new hires to promote OER use on our campus. I'm hoping for an OER committee as well.
Great, thank you. And now we turn it over to the attendees we have today. So thank you so much for hanging out with us today for this hour and listening and coming along for our journey. And we'd love to hear your questions now or by email next week once you've come up with some questions. So please dive in. Maybe Spencer even has some questions.
Oh, you know me, I've got a long list of questions. Well, first of all, I want to thank all of you very much. And I think that this presentation is very indicative of the joint effort and the collaboration that we've seen. You know, the CU system grant was our first inter-campus grant, and you all have kind of done a great job of demonstrating. In fact, we highlighted your work in our 2020 report, but demonstrating that collaboration with also, you know, contextualizing and adapting for the needs for your local campus. So obviously the identity of each of your campus comes through in your priorities, your initiatives, and your approach to engaging faculty and students and educators on your campus. So I applaud you all for that effort. It's fun to see in action and fun to hear from you. My question is, and Jamie, I asked this question to Jamie actually a little bit earlier, but what's on your wish lists to help you all get to your next list, to get to your next set of goals. Professor Rooks, we heard from you, maybe one of the things on your wish list in terms of the committee and some of the opportunities around the new hires and the leadership that you have. And I'd be curious to hear from some of the rest of you, what's on your wish list.
I'll jump in and say time. I think we always feel we could spend more and more time, and if only we had more time to give to it, we could do so much more. So whether we'll get that or not, I don't know, but we're all enthusiastic and enjoying what we're doing.
I would say I'd like to revamp our advocacy efforts across campus to get more buyers within the administration. Not that there aren't, of course, they're all interested, but it would be good to get some concrete efforts into sustaining this program.
For UCCS, I mean, we're always looking for more participants in our program. That's really how we're building a network of support on our campus. So that's what we're hoping for.
And I think for our campus, it's just more of the college's input and representation for OER as well, specifically faculty using OER in our campus. So that would be helpful to be part of this future OER committee for our campus level.
I hope the state legislature renews the CDHE grant maybe in a year or two. Hope there's more money coming down the pipeline, because man, does that help.
I agree with you, Ben, on that one, because with the time constraints and all that's gone on, especially recently with our transitions to remote learning and that kind of thing, that extra incentive has really helped faculty to prioritize a little bit in that, and gives them that extra motivation to take that designated effort to implement and utilize OER. So yeah, 100% with you on that one, Ben.
From your mouths to the governor's ears, right? We'll take that feedback for sure. Thank you all for answering my questions.
Are there other questions? Are there questions from one presenter to another? Did anything come up that you want to ask another campus?
I feel like as the new kid on the block for the group and perhaps we need to start reaching out to invite people who are OER champions from your campus to help us out with our community and give us great examples as well. So I might have to do that in the future.
That's actually a great idea. And in the first year of this program, we invited Ellen Metter from your campus to give to help with the OER workshop in our campus as well, because it was the first time that we were running it. So I have to say that something very important about this initiative, for us at least, has been this collaborative work between among the 4 campuses. You've seen, how much our efforts at Anschutz have grown, and we started the committee before this CDHE grant was available, but I have to say that it would have been very hard to have the program grow so much without that. But that also brought us together so that we could work in coordination with other campuses, and we got so many good ideas from everybody else that really helped us, establish this program.
I hope Jamie is willing to continue to herd the cats over the next year or two.
Something exciting that I realized is that we do an OER champion award every year, and that is not dependent on the CDHE funding. So that sort of bar is set, right? And, if we head into 2022, 23, there's still you know, the way we occupy that space below the bar might change, but that will still be there. We'll still culminate in March with an award. So I do have that to offer, and my undying support and allegiance. So don't worry, Ben. I also see a question in the chat. I'm just going to read it verbatim. Is there any networking opportunities coming from the Department of Higher Ed between all institutions, the universities and the community colleges? So that's for Spencer.
Sure, and that is a, excuse me, that is a great question. We're always thinking about how to facilitate those meaningful connections and opportunities to connect. You know, one of the ideas that we've been batting around with the OER Council is less of this kind of standalone conference, which we've done in the past. And our first year was in person. The second year, of course, with the pandemic, the second year of this grant was right in the thick of the pandemic. Ooh. Sorry, I was interrupted by a dog. And I didn't want you all to have to deal with it. So the second year we went online and we had some online virtual opportunities, but we're thinking less of this big event and more kind of specified opportunities, whether that be by discipline, facilitating opportunities via discipline, or by need on your campus, whether you're looking for kind of opportunities to develop open pedagogical practices or other materials. You know, kind of identifying those needs and then facilitating those opportunities. So I anticipate through the Open Education Ambassadors program, you know, we'll have some more opportunities upcoming. Right now, we're kind of in the thick of it for OE week, but hopefully some more stuff coming up the rest of the year.
Great. Anyone else? I think we might be wrapping, Spencer.
Awesome. Well, thank you all again very much. Appreciate your time and your dedication, you know, and as always, please continue to foster these connections and let us know how we can further support you all. For those on the line, thank you so much for calling in and listening and learning about what's going on all over the state with the CU system. Super excited to see the work happening, and hopefully you all can continue to join us for some of the events throughout the week. Again, thank you to the entire CU team, and enjoy the rest of your week, you all. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.